Welcome to DiceTillDawn, and finally my top 100 games of all time, the 2016 edition. So in this video we'll go through numbers 100 to 91, but first small ideas on how I did this. First of all, I just went through the list of the games I've played and picked all the games that might make it to the top 100, and I ended up with something like 170 games or something like that. And then I just started putting them to these groups of four or five groups of the best and very good, maybe, and even more maybe, and then started comparing them a bit together, and if there were similar games I might like drop the one that was the least exciting, and all things. And when I got down to a 100, which was pretty hard actually, especially the last like 10 cuts I made, I was like, oh, I want these in, I want all of these in, but well, here it is what it is. And also many games I have that are coming soon, maybe I'm getting Scythe soon and other games, so this will of course change, but I wanted to lock it down now and just make these videos and see the situation next year again. So last year I made a top 50, and I will actually say where the games landed on the top 50 list, and also 3 games actually dropped off the top 100 even though they were in the top 50, so that's some kind of a change also. But anyway, that's pretty much it. Also, I've been making my top 30 solitaire games, the list is complete, and I will start filming those videos soon also, hopefully get them all done by the end of November, maybe December, at least December or something like that, depending on how much schoolwork I can manage to do at the same time and all these things. But yeah, so without anything else to blabber on about, let's start with my number 100, which was ironically number 50 in my last top 50 list, and that is Volker Runkes and Jeff Grossman's Cuba Libre, the second volume in the Counterinsurgency series, the Coin series. This is a heavy historic strategy game of Castro's insurgency, and has 4 factions which are totally asymmetrical, and they try to like control Cuba, and all they have different win conditions and different actions they do, so every time you play a different faction you totally are playing a very different game. They have different resources they use, or how much they use, and they use some use guerrillas, and of course the government uses police and army troops and all these things. So it's very interesting and has a lot of replay value, even just alone on the factions, but also it's a card driven game, so which cards come up at which times really might change the game a lot. And you can actually play it, I think, as a team game if you want. I haven't got to try that yet, but I really enjoy it. And it has solo mode, which is basically the biggest reason it's on the list, because the solo mode is nice and you control the bots. It's sometimes a bit much work, but once you understand the bots it isn't too bad. But it's the biggest reason it's here, because I only got to play it once as a proper 4-player game, and that's so sad, because I think if I got a group to play this for like 5 games now in a short succession, this might rise a lot on the list, because I really enjoy the mechanics and the asymmetry and the history and the cards. So a heavy game, be warned, but if you're interested in the time period or historical themes or like heavier strategy games of the historic nature, I guess, look out for Cuba Libre. Okay, so number 99 is a much smaller and lighter game, and that's actually pretty new for me. That's Agricola, All Creatures, Big and Small. I only got this like a month ago or something like that. This is basically Agricola if you take out the occupations and the improvements and the like vegetables, growing vegetables and feeding your people. You basically only have a small farm you pasture animals at, so the more animals you can get by the end of the game, which is 8 rounds I think, and only 2-player game, I forgot to say probably that, although it reads here for 2 players, and the most animals and most like of the same type might get you bonus points. So there are different paths to victory in a sense, especially if you get the first expansion or any of the building expansions. Then you will have more buildings that actually give you points from different things. So it's a quick, light, cool game that has I think one of few of the best mechanics from Agricola, like the breeding of the animals and the pastures and building the huts and all these things, and also some cool building abilities, especially with the expansion. And it's just cool fun and gives you that Agricola feeling, but in a small, tight package that is fun. So, Agricola, all creatures, big and small. Okay, number 98 is also a two-player game called Battle Line. This is the game that actually murdered Lost Cities for me. I do kind of enjoy Lost Cities. We actually just sold it yesterday, but this is just better in every way. There's no like doing the math like in Lost Cities. In the end, it's sometimes I'm studying mathematics, so it's not a problem for me, but it just feels that you are playing this small, cool, light game, and then in the end you have to do math. Usually I do it for both players, so that's another thing. But anyway, Battle Line is basically a refined version of that, which has a lot of going on, and the more you play it, the more you understand that, wow, that's actually an interesting thing to think about, and you can do different mechanics and different like plannings and different strategies in the game. And even though it is just a deck of 60 cards, you would think it's just luck, but I would argue that like 90% of the games, the player that plays better wins the game. And basically you just try to do these formations and capture flags. There are 9 fronts where you are fighting, and you try to play poker hands from these cards and try to win at least 5 of the flags, or maybe 3 ones that are next to each other, so you can make a breakthrough of that line and win that way. But Battle Line is awesome. Okay, so numbers 97. That's Mykerinos, or Mykerinos, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. But this is a cool, small, light, pretty light area control, special powers. What else can I say? Basically doing excavations in Egypt and getting something from there to exhibit in a museum. And there's area control of the museum places, but also area control of the excavations every round. And there's this cool mechanic of just putting these cubes on the table, and you can then start growing them like a worm or start new excavations. And the further you get in rounds of the game, you actually get these advisors which give you special powers that can break the rules of the game. So the area control of the excavations gets even more interesting, and you can get cool things there. So very interesting. Mykerinos is just a cool abstract kind of game, but has a cool theme attached to it, even though it's very lightly pasted on, I guess. Okay, number 96. We are back to pretty heavy games. Well, at least pretty medium heavy. And that's Commands and Colors Ancient. This is of the Commands and Colors series, obviously, and has these like wooden blocks you use for the troops, which have a sticker on them. Sounds lame, but once you see them on the table, it actually makes sense in a way, and they do look kind of cool when you have all of them. The lines of the troops on the table, and the pictures are like give you the historic feeling. And basically this is like Memoir 44, but a bit heavier. There are more abilities, more troop types, and more things going on in the battles. The reason I really like this game is when in Memoir 44 the attacker shoots, and then the other player goes and shoots. In this game it simulates the harsh and brutal battles of the ancient times. And you try to keep your lines going forward in a like helping each other and going along I mean. And then when the two front lines collide, there's chaos. I've seen like several groups destroyed in a turn or two, because in many of the troops in the game can actually fight back when they are being fought in close combat. So if I attack my opponent's heaviest troops with my light cavalry, maybe light infantry or something like that, it might actually be that my troops are the ones that end up dying, not the opponents. And that's just interesting and really makes the decisions matter, because you can't just try to take pot shots and try to poke the player with your better cards maybe. And that's why it's just so cool. And very thematic also, because the heaviest cavalry or heaviest infantry is really heavy in this game. So that's cool, and that's Commands and Colors Ancient. Okay, so on to number 95, the first cooperative game on the list, and the oldest cooperative game, I guess. And that's Lord of the Rings by Dr. Knizia. And this is the Fantasy Flight version. Sorry again, it's cold here in Finland already. Okay, so this is one of the first cooperative games, if not even the first proper cooperative game, and has the Lord of the Rings theme. And even though it mostly feels like an abstract game, because you're just drawing some tiles and playing some cards, and although there's great artwork in the game, it just weirdly captures the theme quite nicely. There are hard decisions when you're playing, and you have to think about if you take one for the team as a hobbit, and which cards the people should play at which times, and which things they want to accomplish on the board. And at first it feels weird, and when you read the rules and all, it's just weird. What is this going on? But once you get to play it, especially this second game, you just start. It just clicks, and you find out that it's actually very challenging and cool and weirdly thematic game that is just very nice. I'm sad that the Fantasy Flight didn't actually reprint the expansions, and I haven't been able to find them, at least not yet, of the older version, even though they are not totally compatible, but I think it would work if I just managed it somehow. But I would really like at least some of the expansions, even though the base game has a lot of replayability. I think I've played it 10 times at least or so far, and you can actually change the difficulty quite nicely in the game also. So that was number 95. Number 94 is actually Airlines Europe. This is basically a bit heavier game than Ticket to Ride, but has the same feeling, and it's actually designed by Alan Moon. And the old game was something like Airline Pacific, or I'm not sure what was the older version called. But this is basically where you are building these airline companies and their routes around Europe. And the more one company gets built, its stock value rises. So this is also a stock market game. And none of the players actually control any of the airlines, but they can get stocks in the companies, basically drawing the train cards in Ticket to Ride in a sense, and then also either build the airplane companies' routes. And there's a cool twist there, because let's say I get all the black stocks from the offer, and well, yeah, that's cool for me, I get a majority on it, but the other players will see that neither of them have any black, so none of them will ever build the black airlines route, so it's up to me to build them. So you have to decide on, do I just build these routes and pick the better offers when I see them, or do I just grab all the stocks I can get and hope the other players start building the routes so the stocks are actually of any value. So sorry, so that's just a cool tension and a great game, Airlines Europe. So number 93. A game that might actually be hard to get soon because of the feud between, or the end of the contract between Games Workshop and Fantasy Flight Games, but that is Blood Bowl Team Manager, the card game. I just got the last expansion just because I know that soon it won't be available, even though I don't really need it yet. Sorry again. So basically, this is a cool, weird game where you are playing with the Warhammer fantasy setting teams of like orcs and elves and human and skaven and all these different teams, and you have a starting team, and then you go through these match days where you fight on different matches, just basically playing your cards. Has a small deck building aspect where you can get actually star players to your roster and better your team as a result of that. And then you can get other staff upgrades and team upgrades and all these things to make your team even better. And the player with the most fans in the end is actually the winner. So usually you get the most fans by winning these matchups and doing well in the cup and all these things. But some of the groups also get a lot of fans from doing weird things like cheating or tackling, or depending on what you get and which team you get and which upgrades you might get. So it's just a fun and silly game and really brings out the laughter in my group. Usually pretty much every time there's a lot of laughing with the tackles. So Blood Bowl Team Manager, and of course soccer, football. I really like sports management games in a sense, so that's why it's also interesting. But yeah, number 92. The Discoveries, the Journals of Lewis and Clark. This has the theme of the expedition of Lewis and Clark, and is like a lighter version of the Lewis and Clark expedition, or what was the subtitle of that game. But uses just dice, a small like main board and deck of cards, and has still cool and weirdly interesting decisions to make and tough interactions, and you really have to plan ahead. Of course it's dice and cards, so there's luck there, but the more you play, the more you understand that it's actually very nice, and also has kind of an engine building thing going on, because in the beginning you usually try to get one or two of the tribe cards to your side, and then start building that engine and using that to get to travel the most and get the most points from the traveling the places. So the cool game, Discoveries. Okay, so on to the last one on the list, and sadly a game that I haven't been able to play a lot yet, but it might be a lot higher if I got to play it more. But that is Star Trek Fleet Captains. So what can I say? This is, as many have said, this is Star Trek, one season of Star Trek in a game. When you play one game, you see there's one season's worth of stuff in the game. There's everything from tribbles to all the races and all the like Borg, and well, not Borg aren't as a faction, but you can see them in the cards, and pretty much all of the references from this series is in the game, and you can pick the crew members and all the ships from the series and beyond, and there's just so much stuff going on, but it still is pretty like Euro-ish, I guess. It's pretty Euro game in a way. Basically you just do these few actions per turn, and you can actually win the game by just exploring and trying to evade the other players, so this isn't just a combat game. Of course Klingons get a lot more points if they manage to like just battle, because that's their thing, but the Federation really wants to explore and they are good at it, and all these things. For example, in one of my last games I was playing as Klingons. This is just an example of the highly thematic things that can happen in the game. Well, tribbles, you know, the Star Trek fans out there know them, but basically they are just these small critters that multiply themselves like rabbits, and they just take over the ships in a sense, even though they aren't like sentient in a way and don't want to do anything bad. They just multiply out of control. So one of my small Klingon ships was actually riddled with triples in the game, and it dropped its abilities a lot, and it couldn't do pretty much anything. So I did manage to like search one sector with that group or ship, and I found a black hole there. I was like, wow, that's actually cool. That's a Klingon way to solve this problem, and I just stayed in the black hole and let the black hole swallow the ship, and I will get a new one next round. And, well, what do you know, after a few rounds of struggling in the black hole and the churn, they would have perished in the black hole. The heroic crew actually managed to roll a 6 and get out of the black hole, and I had to find another way to teleport the triples out of the ship or something like that to actually make the ship useful again. But just an example that was just created by the things in the game, not just by a card that says something, but it was a combination of these things, and me adding to the Klingon side of thinking of, yeah, this must be what the Klingons should do. They want to die in the battle and not like surrender to these ridiculous tribbles. Anyway, so that's Star Trek Fleet Captains. It might easily be in my top 10 if I got to play it more. I have the expansions also, so I have the Romulan Empire and Dominion, and I really want to play it more every time I see it on the shelf, but hopefully soon. Anyway, so that's the first 10 of the list, and I got to a start, and let's keep these rolling every week or so. So, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for my rest of the list and my top 30 solitaire games. Thanks for watching. Bye.